You're sitting right now in the skin of one of the best information storage and retrieval devices known to humanity. Your body. For that matter, you can use the body of toys too, but for now, hold out your right hand, or your left hand if you prefer, and together we'll experience how the body memory palace works right now. So imagine in your hand a sailboat, and then hold out your other hand and imagine a snowman. Now, why on earth would you do this? Well, a sailboat kind of looks like the number 4, and a snowman is kind of like the number 8. Now, we're going to keep this very, very simple. This is a beginner's guide to the body memory palace, but if you can just reduce things to very simple shapes and place them on your hands, you're going to use this technique very, very well. And I know you might be thinking, how can I use this for physics and so forth? This is the monkey mind. The formulas can come, but it all has to start on the basis of simply being able to imagine sailboats on one hand and snowmen in the other. And when those objects look like numbers, you can then recall those numbers with greater ease. So try it again with me. Really, really focus on the palm of your hand with that sailboat in it. And start to add some of the different things that can make the number 4 even more memorable than the shape. Take a deep breath and then blow. And let that breath blow the sails of the sailboat and hear them flapping in your ears 4 times to really assert the shape of the 4 as a sound. Flap, 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 flap. And then move to your other hand and imagine that number 8 snowman like the infinity symbol. Really get that concept going. Tip it on its side. Give it infinity-shaped sunglasses. And then feel the cold. And if you won't freak out, try getting into the conceptual mode while you're thinking about the snowman on your hand, with the infinity of time and space oozing with 8s throughout all of the universe. That crisp and wonderful winter of forever just filling your hand, the snowman, and connecting you with the entire known and unknown world. Snowman all the way down. Makes it much, much easier to remember that the 8 is in this hand, and then you can interact the two if you want. And if you like, and you want to turn this exercise from something mental into something real, type in the comments the number that you're holding in each hand and your experience of completing this exercise. What additional ideas came to mind? What additional sensations came? And you can also just write it down on paper to help your brain learn these simple associations, but go one step further. If you're writing with your right hand, and let's say that's where you have the sailboat, then hear that flap flap as you're writing your thoughts. And if you have the 8 snowman and you're writing your thoughts with your left hand, have the sense of icicles forming as you write. This is part of the imaginative work that enables you to use memory techniques and recall information so much better, layer upon layer of encoding, as much as you can possibly get. Now, mentally bookmark these 2 associations, because there's a reason that I'm giving you 4 and 8. And if you're enjoying this experience so far, smash that thumbs up like an infinite snowman blasting the entire internet with the infinity of importance that having a good memory brings to mind. And if you're new here and you would love more exercises like these that build your memory and give you the experience of doing some memory work in real time, get subscribed, because we are going deep and deeper still as we help raise all ships on the Magnetic Memory Method project. I'm Dr. Anthony Metivier, and let's look next at a more complete way to use the body with a portrait from 1785 called Franklin's Return to Philadelphia by Jean-Léon Jerome Ferris. And to turn Benjamin Franklin's body into a memory palace, start at the space above his head. And just go with this. There's other ways that you can do this, but we'll start from the top down. And really focus on this space above his head. Not anything in the background per se, but just the space above his head. And, you know, I personally use this area as the 0 station because it's literally just empty space. And if it really helps you remember that this place is linked with 0, you can give him an angel's halo. Now, if you don't like a halo as 0, you could have a big giant donut to represent 0. And then you move down Benjamin Franklin's body to the top of his head and let that be station 1. Let the nose be station 2. And his mouth can be station 3, the ribs, station 4, the liver area, station 5. Then we go down to the hip joint. That can be station 6 in this body memory palace. The knees are 7. 8 is at the calves, and 9 is the bottom of the feet. Now, there's a logic to why I'm highlighting these areas and why I haven't used the hands that we just warmed ourselves up with, or in the case of the snowman, made ourselves feel the infinity of time and space, which is very, very cold indeed. We're just going to leave the hands out for this particular style of the body memory palace. But since we're on the hands, do you remember what you imagined in your hands, what the objects were? If so, mentally move the image associated with 4 to where on Franklin's body I just said was the 4th station. Now, you might need to go back and look at that again on this video, but this is a very, very important point, is that you could have something like a number 4, if you have to memorize it, on the 4th station of a body. But you need to link that place and use it regularly in order for it to be reliable. Now, if you're wondering, how do I move something like a sailboat to another part of a body? You just have to explore how you can do this. The movement can manifest itself in many ways. You can literally imagine it moving and watch it in your mind's eye, or you can feel it move. You could hear it move. You could just have it teleport like it was going into a teleporter in Star Trek, zipping from this place to another place. So it could be the 4 in the hand now going onto Franklin's body or onto your own body. And that's how I generally prefer to do everything in my memory palace work, is to zip from station to station as if going into a teleporter in Star Trek, except for I don't add the actual imagination of anybody stepping into a teleporter. So if I was going from the top of the head down to the nose, it's just zip, 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 zip. There's no actual imagined journeyed movement. It's just kind of like jumping from constellation to constellation, or star to star, better said, in a constellation. So play around with this and just try moving things around. See how that feels. This can be very, very useful in various ways. And, you know, this structure that I gave you of 0 over the top of the head and 1, very specifically the top of the head, and 2 being the nose and so forth, that's not how all people do it. If you look at some of the ancient literature, this one, for reasons I don't fully understand, has 8 over the head, and then this one also starts with 8, and 9 is the forehead. You can build your own arrangements. I just happen to like the 0, the 1, and the 2 because it links with the major system. Now, that's a little bit beyond what we're going to do in today's video, but if you're more interested in that, you can stick around and get involved in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass and watch future videos, etc. Now, however you arrange these stations, what you want to do is test yourself and just think, like, where did I put 8 on the body? What am I going to use for 8 regularly? And I'd love to hear what you ultimately decide, what you think might work for you. But then, you know, you also have to test it by memorizing something. So let's keep this simple and let's just work with what we got. I just said this painting from Ferris is 1785 was the year. And if you wanted to remember that fact, well, you could take the first number, 1, and have a candle on the top of Franklin's head, and that candle could be burning a Ferris wheel. So you remember the name Ferris, and then you have 1. And this is on Franklin's head. And then for 7, you maybe imagine a kangaroo hammering poor Benjamin Franklin's knee with a boomerang shaped like a 7, which boomerangs kind of resemble a 7. So now we've got 17, 1 and 7. Now you already have the idea of a snowman for 8. And so then you just have to think about what you're going to use for 5. Well, how about a seahorse for 5? where would you place that? Where did I talk about placing it before? Well, myself, if you want to test yourself, press pause and think, where was that? Or go back and watch it again. Myself, I use the liver area for 5, and I do tend to link it with a seahorse. And sometimes I use a number rhyme technique, so 5 is a hive, so there might be a beehive involved. And, this is a way of memorizing dates using the body. Now, this is just one date, and there are other ways to do it. It depends on how you're going to mix the body memory palace with different systems. So one thing that you can do, for example, is have the birth date of an individual in the left hand and their death date in the right hand to remember when various people lived. And, you can make things even more complex by just going to words. So Benjamin Franklin had a bunch of virtues, 13 virtues. We only have 10 stations on his body, right? What are we going to do? Well, let's look at it a little bit and just think about how we would memorize the first one. So temperance is number 1. We're going to forget 0, and we're going to have temperance on the top, right, of his head. So what could you do? Myself, I would tend to think of Shakespeare's The Tempest because it has temperance in it, T-E-M-P, right? So I have Shakespeare's play on the top of Franklin's head, and is this interfering with the candle that's burning the Ferris wheel? Apparently not, because I just thought about both at the same time. Once you have temperance in place, you can move down for the second virtue to the nose, which is silence. And to help you remember that silence is the second virtue, you can have a swan involved, and that swan is being super silent. Now, why would it be a swan on the nose? Well, the swan kind of looks like the number 2. And, you just keep going all the way down the body. But if it's 13 virtues, where would you put the number 10? Because you have 0 to 9, and those are 10 stations, but where's 10 if you want to go 10, 11, 12, 13? One thing that I've done for this particular goal is just to have 10 either in the left hand or the right hand if I have overspill. Don't want a huge amount of overspill, but there you have 10 and 11, and then you have the feet 12, 13. And that can be quite useful. Or one thing that can be useful to do after you've capped out a body memory palace, you can look through the figure's eyes, so to speak, and you could have, in this case, invisible cubes right in front of Franklin. So you are Benjamin Franklin, memorizing your own virtues, and then 10 is cleanliness, so Franklin can reach up, or you, pretending to be Franklin, can reach up and clean your hands inside of this invisible cube right in front of you that represents 10. Or you can maybe clean the candle that's gotten a little bit dirty from cavorting with, Ferris wheels and all of this sort of stuff, right? Whatever you're doing in your imagination, cleanse that out. Then for 11, you could have tranquility, which is the next cell down, this invisible cell. And if you want to remember that it's 11, you could have 2 candles, and they can be very, very tranquil, or they could be on tranquilizers, and they could literally be burning tranquilizers. So now you have the 11 with the 2 candles and some kind of characteristic that they're behaving to get you that virtue. All right, let's quickly recap. The most direct way to use your body or the body of anyone else is to essentially follow a straight line from the top to the bottom. Now let me share with you 30 Statues by Giordano Bruno, who really went even deeper on the whole idea of the body memory palace. And I don't think he would have liked the 10 station palace, and he might not have liked my idea of looking through, say, Benjamin Franklin's eyes and having these different cells to, place virtues, because Bruno was big on the number 30 for some reason. So 30 statues, but also 30 stations on each statue. And by statue, he's essentially talking about the body memory palace. But let's test ourselves first before we carry on. Do you remember what you placed in this hand? What about in this hand? Well, the reason why that I gave you those numbers is because Giordano Bruno was born in 1548. And sadly, he was burned at the stake in the year 1600, February 17th, actually. And one of the ways that I remembered that was using his statue to place these images on his body. So that exercise, if you remembered it, and if you wanted to remember it more permanently, you could go to Bruno's statue. If you ever are in Rome, I highly recommend it. Or you could just look at a picture of it. And I highly recommend, if you read nothing else about Bruno, read Ingrid Rowland's book. It's heartbreaking, but it contains a lot of historical value and even treasure about how to live and how not to live in this crazy, strange world of ours. Anyhow, Bruno discussed using these statues and divvying them up for use as Mary Palaces based on parts of the body that come in pairs. And that's how he gets to 30. So you use the 2 eyes as 2 stations, the 2 ears as 2 stations, the nostrils. And when you get through both sides of the chest and the 2 hands and both sides of the hips and the 2 knees and all that sort of stuff, you wind up with 30 stations according to his model. And you got to try it for yourself. I never found it that great. I think it's just too small to have little images on ears, right? But if you want to copy down Bruno's exact recommendation for how you place the 30 stations, just pause the screen and you can copy it down. Or you can assign your own 30 stations, or maybe you come up with more. The principle is the same. You're bundling associations together with your target information in the locations you've designated. So for 48, it could be that you have a sailboat earring and a snowman earring for 4 and 8. And you could still do that same thing by blowing the wind, flap, 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 with the sails. And maybe because it's on your ears, you feel the sailboat piercing your ear to give you this physical sensation that's going to make that 4 stick. And, it doesn't have to be just numbers. It could be a word, maybe a word related to the anatomy of the ear, right? So you would still want to supplement it with some kind of feeling. If it was a candle burning up Shakespeare's The Tempest on your ear, then, you want to think about how much temperance you're going to have in response to that. And then, is that really the right place? Maybe you would want that burning more to your nose, so you're having the direct smell of the flames of Shakespeare's Tempest burning up for the virtue of temperance. And the great thing about the body memory palace or statues is that you can see the statue having the emotion. So if it's temperance, you can have a bad temper emerge to really get it that it's that word, temperance, as opposed to any other variation on that word. There are more principles like these to consider. And if you'd like some exercise-based training videos, make sure to grab the free memory improvement kit at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT, where you can learn more about traditional memory palaces, or use the link in the description. Love for you to go through that course. Now, I got one more beginner's suggestion coming up for you. But if you want another simple memory technique, and this one does not go too deep into the weeds, and it's really quite a short one, make sure to watch my video on rhyme mnemonics next. Rhyme mnemonics are something I believe everyone should have as an alternative to candles and swans. So instead of an image for a number, you have a rhyme. So this is one of the easiest ways to memorize lists, and it's just going to give you an additional tool that is very simple and direct. It's limited, though, because number rhymes after 10, 11, maybe you have a rhyme for quite easily. 12, what rhymes with 12? But then you get 13, 14, 15, 16. So it's still worth knowing, but it is super limited. The key too, and you'll learn about it, is how to make those images super weird. So even if it is a limited technique, it's really, really powerful. So watch the tutorial on number rhymes next. And the suggestion I have for you when it comes to body memory palaces is to experiment more with your hands, because hands can be powerful tools to use very, very simply, just with the tips of your fingers. I learned something from Tyson Yunkaporta when he was on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. This was the ancient rules that Aborigines would use, which is connect, respect, reflect, and direct. So basically, being able to remember that could keep you in good behavior when you're in a meeting so that you're respectful, but also not having conflict because you've reflected before you say what it is that you're going to answer to a person. You can extend the same principle to your toes, where you're giving yourself more little stations. And so if you take your 5 fingers on one hand and then your 5 fingers on your other hand and your toes, you're giving yourself a lot more stations. Now, how much information that you can put there? It's maybe not going to be extraordinary amounts, but just think about the implications. Batman, he has boots, and you could use those boots. You don't have to see the feet, right? And then you could also have countless iterations of Batman inside of a memory palace. And you can have blue Batman, you can have green Batman, you can have yellow Batman, etc. And it's going to be all the more powerful when you have a line from the top to the bottom of Batman, and then you have the 2 hands, the fingers, if appropriate, the feet as individual places. And the only issue that you're going to come up with is that you got to just pick a journey and then stick with it, however you're going to navigate this body. And then you can just continually place all kinds of Batman statues in memory palaces, and you extend a wall or a corner by multiple factors of stations. All right, so give that a try, play around with it, have a lot of fun, and check out the Number Rhyme video next. And until we have a chance to speak again, thank you as always for joining me, and keep yourself magnetic.